So, welcome to our 123rd episode to the Gutenberg Changelog podcast. In today's episode, we will talk about WordPress 6.9 and Gutenberg 21.9, unless we cover it already in the release discussion. I'm your host, Birgit Pauli-Haack, curator at the Gutenberg Times and a full-time core contributor for the WordPress open source project, sponsored by Automatic. After a long break, Isabel Brison, JavaScript developer at Automatic and core contributor, friend and WordCamp buddy, is on the show again. I'm delighted to have you. Thank you for joining us today, Isabel. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. And thanks for inviting me, Birgit. I always love being here.
You're always such a delight, and you have so much knowledge about the Gutenberg project that, yeah, it's just amazing. So we are jumping right in, right? What have you been
Oh,
working on for the last period of time?
I've been working on bits and bobs, this and that. I did a fair bit of work on the content-only feature formerly titled Write Mode,
Hmm.
but unfortunately that didn't make it into 6.9. It's getting there. I'm optimistic that we will have it built shortly, but it just wasn't stable enough. There were decisions to be made. UX wasn't really perfect, so we thought we'd hold back from adding it to this release.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it was a good decision, but I also love the feature. Yeah, that it kind of you kind of get your head out of the design stuff and you're not distracted by the design stuff and you just can create content. Once a theme is stable or once a site is stable, you don't have to make all those decisions. Yeah, so I'm really great that that's in the works. But yeah, I understand that it is punted, as we say, to WordPress 7.0. Wow, that's a big number. Too. That's next year. All right.
Yeah, that'll be exciting.
Yeah. So last episode, we were actually talking with Beth Soderberg, and we also kind of talked a little bit what probably doesn't make it. And now that we have WordPress 6.9 beta 1 out, we know that especially two blocks that I really was looking forward didn't make it into the release. They are also punted to 7.0. That is the breadcrumbs block, and it's
Mhm.
the icon block, and maybe no another one. There was some ambitious new blocks in the works, and they will all come, but not for this release. So, what are the main features for 6.9, do you think?
There's a lot. I don't see it as a sort of one of those releases where you have one or two massive features that are just absorbing all the attention. It seems like we like they're I don't know. I mean, usually by the time we get to the stable release and folks are preparing the release post and the demos and all that, they'll, we do a bit of sort of, I want to say marketing spin, but it kind of is around the features and
Right.
something will have to emerge in first place. But for me, it's looking at the list, it's looking very balanced. There are very sort of no massive feature, but a lot of small to medium great improvements, quality of life stuff, things that are going to be incredibly useful, like really practical. So I'm liking that a lot in this feature list for the release.
Yeah, I agree with you. However, I think that the notes feature was previously called the block level comments is actually pretty
Comment.
big for editorial teams. Well, for a blogger like me, I'm the
Mm.
only one on the site, or maybe two or three others. It has no ramification because I can comment myself just a little bit somewhere else. But if you want to kind of keep a step out of the editorial process, like Google Docs, where people asynchronous comment on things, that is definitely a feature that a few people really would like to have on their team. So I'm liking that very much.
Yeah, yeah, that is it's a very new one. It's not a sort of enhancement to any existing thing. It's like, oh, suddenly you can comment on posts. And that's good. And it's also exciting because it's sort of a preview of things to come in terms of the collaborative editing, phase three, the big, I guess what would be the big piece of phase three. So
Hmm.
yeah, it is in that sense. It's a cool feature, definitely.
Yeah. And the other part is I like, but I'm not quite sure how the switch will happen. The expanded template management. There have been quite some tests in there. So that's a feature where you have now two more items in the menu. One is
Hmm.
the customized templates, and one is the active templates, and
Yeah,
then the theme templates. Yeah.
so you can, so there's a few interesting sort of workflow changes around that. One of them is that whereas previously you'd go into your templates section in the site editor and you just click into a template, into one of the theme templates, and you just go edit it and whatnot. And then you could revert it if you wanted to. But now, if you go into the template editor and you click a theme template, it goes, do you want to duplicate this template? Because this is the theme template and you can make a copy if you want, but you're not going to touch the original one. So that's a bit of a difference. And also in the split between, what are the templates that are already there in the theme and templates that you might create yourself, and your created templates appearing in a different list. And what is probably the most, I guess, I don't know. I find it really hard to judge what might be more, because different people, different workflows will find things more useful than others. But the active templates one is also super interesting because it means that you can essentially have multiple of each. So you could have multiple home templates and you can switch between them because only one of them is active. So you say you have three different home templates, and the active one is the one that's showing on your website's homepage. And then you can just go into the admin and switch the active template if you want to just change your homepage to a different template. So that is super cool if you're doing things like, the landing pages and stuff like that, seasonal things. This is my Halloween homepage sort of thing.
Timely example. Wonderful. Yeah.
Mm.
And it comes with a few hiccups because that one is if you are accustomed to change your template right there from the theme, getting a notification that it's now a duplicate there, and normally duplicates we don't like. Yeah. So, but it also the advantage is that you can make your edits without interrupting your front page and then can activate the edited one and leave the theme template as it is. And you can always switch back in activating and deactivating it. But I think that one step is, oh, do you want to duplicate? Yeah, it's kind of another decision for the user, but I think it's a valuable one to point out that, yeah, you can edit this without interrupting your front page, and then and you can, yeah, build more than one. It's also good for plugin developers who want to add or help with templating specific features, then they can actually also provide multiple templates for the feature. So if it's a WooCommerce, yeah, big plugin that has a lot of additional features, yeah, they can provide multiple templates for the product page or for the archive page for products, and then give the user some choices which one they would like more,
Mhm.
and add in additional features. So I think that's also still an underrated feature coming to WordPress, but it makes the handling of the template so much easier or consistent, I would say. There's no surprises anymore. So, oh, I didn't know I wanted to do that kind of thing. The next one on the list is the ability to hide the blocks. I think we talked about it also with Beth Soderberg. This is and with others, because that kind of was in some of the Gutenberg releases before. It's more a foundational feature right now. It can only do hide or show, but there is
Yes.
no conditional around it. Yeah, I think that's I think the developers really want to make sure that the foundation of adding, showing, and hiding is consistent throughout the interface and the front end and all the different pieces like blocks, like patterns, yeah, like sync patterns. Yeah, you could hide a
Mhm.
block within the sync pattern, or even templates or template parts. Yeah, before they
Yeah.
add conditions to it. And also with the conditions will come the thinking about how can other people, third-party extenders, that's plugin developers, also add additional conditions to it in the realm of the WordPress ecosystem. So I think the treading lightly on that feature is a good first, it's a good first iteration there.
Yeah. And it can be super useful as sort of a complement actually to the active templates idea, is that you could potentially have a pattern or a block or something, you have a sale on, and so you put the sale block up on your website and then you take it down. So, and it's still there. You could just switch it on and off whenever
Hmm.
you like. So it's going to be pretty useful for that sort of workflow, I reckon.
Definitely,
And
yeah.
I see where with the conditional hiding, there's one very obvious thing that I think has sort of been a feature request that's been going around for ages, which is being able to conditionally hide blocks depending on the breakpoint. So in order to have different layouts or different content for
Mobile.
desktop and mobile, for instance. And so that's everything that involves responsive behaviors is so complicated, because
Mm.
once you start thinking about how do you define this, then what is mobile? What are you going to give people fixed breakpoints? Are you going to give them the ability to define their own breakpoints? What's this API going to look like? There's a
Yes.
lot of questions there that haven't been answered.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. And I think I'm coming from a expectations that I have been using Nick Diego's block visibility plugin that he started, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. And he kind of provided new features every time when he released a new plugin. And you can do the time condition, you can do the coming from Twitter or coming from. So there are a lot of expectations there that have been a little bit damped through this first feature in core, but
Mm.
I think it's a good move to do that in the smallest increments possible to not interrupt things too much. Yeah. So how do you feel about the command palette? Command palette
It's
everywhere.
It's cool. I mean, it's actually pretty nice to be on whatever screen, call it up, just start typing name of new screen I want to go to and be able to go, because I think really it saves a lot of clicking around in the admin. A lot of, going, oh, click link to place. Whereas now it's just keyboard shortcut, type enter. Your
Hmm.
your hand never needs to leave the keyboard.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good. Yeah. I like it very much. And I haven't used it that much as I wanted to, but I also haven't had the WordPress 6.9 installed on many of the test sites. But yeah, I like that now the pressure is off to surface all the menu items to the top. So it's easy accessible. That's kind of for a lot of people, kind of the problem with the WP admin with the 2 to 3 levels deep. And this can really, yeah, shortcut that, as you said, to the next screen, to a different add a post. You don't have to click through all that. You don't have to, for
Wow.
changing settings, you don't have to find which settings do I want, yeah, and all that. It's really cool. Yeah. And I'm glad that it's now available to the full WP admin. That's where it's really shining now.
Yeah, that's it. That's the thing. It's go from anywhere to anywhere, whatever screen you're on. That's really cool.
And plugins can register commands for their own tools. So there's that API was in 6.8 already, or even 6.7, I don't remember, but it was already in WordPress available for plugins to add commands. But if most plugins are outside of the site editor, so it didn't really register to anybody, yeah, or wasn't particularly useful. So yeah, the next thing is I'm not quite sure what to make of that. That's the allowed block support I get, and the UI
Hmm.
for it I don't get. So allowed block is, well, why don't you explain it?
Yeah, that was actually one of the pieces I reviewed. So I tested it a fair bit. And allowed blocks is something that, so the functionality itself has existed for a while, but so what it does is, for some containers that support it, you can define which blocks are allowed inside that container. So you say, by containers, I mean blocks that can contain inner blocks, such as a group or a cover, or, the usual suspects, columns, stuff like that. And in those blocks, you can define which blocks are allowed as children of them. So you could say, if you have a columns block, these columns will only have headings and paragraphs. And I don't want any images, I don't want any widgets or any other stuff. It's only going to have those two types of blocks. Or conversely, you could say, that there is a specific type of block that is not allowed. But I think the more frequent sort of use case would probably be to define like a strictly limited amount of blocks that you could use. And this could be useful if you're creating patterns and templates that you want to be used in a certain way to make things easier, to just define which blocks are going to be allowed in that container. This was already possible to do, but in order to do it, you had to edit the block markup. So you had to go in to the editor code view, and you had to write in the mark, you had to like identify the block, it's not very user friendly. It's mostly, you know, it is something that can be done through the UI. You don't need a code editor to do it because you have that handy code view in the editor. So you can edit the code, you can add that metadata in there, but it's not nice. And
Yeah.
having that as a UI option, it's well enough hidden away that it's not sort of going to interfere with normal workflows. It's not in your face, right? It's just out there in the advanced. If you really want to use it, you know it's there. Just makes things that little bit easier for, I'd say this is probably mostly a feature for, website admins, theme, pattern builders, that sort of scenario. Agencies probably
Mhm.
find it useful.
Yeah, I think agencies find it useful, but they're already doing that with
Mm.
code. Yeah, so their
Yeah,
patterns
yeah, for
already
sure.
have the block markup in it.
Yeah, this just makes it a nicer interaction model because, I mean, if we're offering essentially what WordPress has been doing for these, for these past, I don't know how many years since the block
Eight.
editor came out, really, 8 years. Wow, that's been a while.
Right.
But we've been building this system that allows you to do as much as you can. It allows you to build whole websites without ever having to touch the code. And this is just, one more piece of that. It's like no, there's a UI for that. You don't actually have to get your hands dirty.
Yeah, so I can see how that works for patterns because it's kind of one container that is used over and over. But to set it up, you need to be in the editor. So it's normally not used for someone who creates posts and pages and have to do the setting for every container that's on the canvas to do that. So it's probably not that use case that I was
Mm.
because yeah, it only makes sense for me to get into template parts or get into the containers
Yeah.
in the patterns or in templates. Yeah. So
Yeah, I'd say so. Yes.
yeah.
This would be
Okay.
mostly a feature for templates and patterns.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't be writing a post and go, oh, I'm going to put a group block in here that only allows paragraphs. Like, well, you
Yeah.
don't need to do that.
Yeah, you can do it right away. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think that was what tripped me up. So why isn't the post and page editor? But that's the same editor. So it's more function
But yeah,
for.
blocks are blocks everywhere. I mean, you can add patterns to posts and you can add navigation blocks to posts that'll just give you your whole website navigation right there in the post. It's like you can do anything with blocks.
Yeah. You can, yeah, definitely do that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I get, yeah. So the same is also happening with block bindings. Yeah, where it had been already in WordPress and being used, but it was not particularly expansive. So now block bindings is kind of going out to all blocks and also have UI where you can see what are the bindings in there and plugins. Plugins will have, not in this release, but in 7.0, I think, the
Hmm.
possibilities to define their own UI for the block bindings. So I think that's going to be a real winner also for plugins to not have to create custom blocks, but just do a block bindings to some data. So now we come to the great part, and that's the new blocks that are in beta
You
one
are.
now. We're all pretty excited, I think, about the accordion block
Oh
finally made
yeah.
it
How good
into
is the accordion block?
and it's pretty feature rich. And I know that Justin Tadlock is working on a style variation tutorial for it. So you as a theme developer or site builder can learn more how you can then style it and what to look for. And he also is testing it. So whatever tutorial comes out, I'm sure he has one or two, three bug reports that he said, well, that could be better. But that's kind of it's the first version, so that's expected and wanted.
Yeah, totally. lots of testing will have to be done on all these things.
Yeah.
So that it's all stable in time for the stable release. There's a math block now. That is super fancy.
Yeah.
Like you can do math stuff in your posts.
Yeah, and there's one math professor, I think from Stanford, who has a blog for many, many years, and he always kind of said, "Is that possible to do latex and ML markup language and all that?" So, yeah, he might be delighted about that. And for all the teachers that are out there that are in STEM fields, that's what is that? Science, technology, math, and
Science, technology,
engineering,
engineering, and
math.
is it math?
Hmm.
Yeah, interesting. I always thought of maths as part of science, but
Well, math is
maybe
used in
not.
all
It
kinds
could
of
be.
different science.
Yeah, it's sort of philosophy adjacent too. It's a bit of a weird one. It's a weird discipline, actually.
Well, engineering needs math
No,
too.
well, engineering is a very practical discipline that uses abstract concepts from other disciplines like maths.
Right. Yeah. So that's STEM. In the US, there are some educationals who actually call it STEAM, and the A that comes in STEAM is for art, because you also need designers to be kind of really good in building a
Mm-hmm.
world. But we are
Yeah.
digressing.
I like Steam actually, I think, because things are a lot more interconnected, because you do have that sort of philosophy poking in, and you have ethics, and you have history, and you have a lot of things. Yeah, a lot of arts related disciplines.
Yeah, I totally agree with you because you also need to have a creative mind, and that is actually most of the time only really taught in art settings, yeah, to kind of be exploratory and to kind of, yeah, see where the art, well, your creativity gets you. And yeah, design is
Yeah.
applied art, yeah, in that matter. So yeah, it's kind of
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
problem solving when you
Mhm.
have lots of constraints, lateral thinking, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So the terms query block is a very special block that helps you create, like the post query loop, a loop of terms that are on your site. And then you can display either with counter or without the counter with links to the archive pages in one swoop. And it also has some adjacent new blocks. That's the term name and the term term description was already in the editor. So that's kind of nice. For the creative designers, the paragraph and heading blocks now have a fit text
Oh, yeah.
typography setting. It came out of the idea that there needs to be a stretchy text block. And then by exploring how to figure out how that works, the developers came up with, oh, that might just be a setting for the typography, and we don't need to create a new block. So I think it's a really cool PR to read through to kind of see how that all kind of developed in terms of we have an idea in our head and then we need to figure out how to implement it.
Yeah, for sure. I think it makes total sense to have that be a setting, or sort of like, I guess it should be under typography. I think it is
It
under
is, yeah,
typography. Yes,
it's under
that's
fit
what
to
makes
text,
sense.
yeah. Fit
So
text.
to be sort of a block support, because then that means that you could potentially, you can add it to headings, you can add it to paragraphs. I mean, you could add it to other blocks potentially, but I think those are probably the major two that you'd want this on.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so what it does is actually you start typing, give it a your heading, and then when you switch it, it kind of fills the whole space of it and not just the space that the normal letters would take. Yeah, when you write it out, it kind of increases it and then or makes it smaller depending on how long it is. But it definitely has a higher attention rate on your website, and it fills the whole thing, whatever container it is in.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to play with. It's a bit weird because there's a bit of a delay in the resizing. So if you're editing something in the editor, it resizes just a bit later, which I guess probably you also don't want it to resize as you type. I don't know. It's like great. I think that in that sort of finer detail of getting the experience exactly right. And if I think there was a bit of back and forth on that on the PR
Hmm.
too.
It was,
So
yeah,
it's going
yeah.
to be interesting to see where we land with this one.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's a bit weird to see the letters go big and small while typing because it
Mm,
kind of gets you a little bit in a motion sickness kind of way. But it's also
mm,
something like the drop cap in the paragraph. Yeah, you don't see it in while you're typing the paragraph, but once you get out of the block, it formats it, the first letter to be a larger size.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's probably a similar thing that you kind of need to manage there.
Sort of. Yeah, no, the drop cap actually disappears if you select the paragraph that has a
Hmm.
drop cap, whereas the text stays big. It's sort of, it slightly changes size. So you have a paragraph with fit text, and if you click into it to type in it, it, because I'm not sure if this is because of the cursor, but for some reason it just sort of shrinks slightly.
Mm.
This might be a bug. I'm not sure. We'll
We'll
have to
figure it
test
out.
a bit further.
I'm sure developers will figure it out, or designers, yeah, to kind of make that a little bit more smoother. Yeah.
Mhm.
And the last block I see that comes in is the time to read block. It has been in Gutenberg for quite a while, but it took some major effort to get it past the accessibility problems that it had. And now it's actually because we talked on a previous episode about that as well, that the time to read, if it's a static number, it kind of is hit and miss for the readers who that take longer or take shorter. Yeah, it's kind of not really helpful. But now it displays a time range, so from 15 to 18 minutes, coming or 12 to 18 minutes or something like that. If you want that, there's a choice for the user. And then the time to read block actually also has a word count setting. So it can be used as two blocks. One displays the time to read in your loop or on your single post template, and the other one shows the word count. So it kind of gives two information about two data sets for the
Mm.
reader to figure out, do I want to read it now or later? And then later never happens. But that's a different story,
Mm.
behavior. Yeah.
Word count is, I find word count a pretty cool block, but is this something we ever want our readers to know how many words
Hmm.
post has? Is there anyone, I guess my question is there anyone out there who chooses what to read based on how many words it has? If you're going to, I need a 5 minute read, are you going to go like, no, I actually need 1,000 word read? Is that
Yeah,
a
yeah,
thing? Does
yeah.
anyone
No,
do
it's just
that?
kind of, yeah. Well, it depends. Writers know how long it
Mm,
takes to read 3,000 words. And you can say, okay, I read half of it and not the rest of it or something like that. If it's good structured, it has the most important part in the first half and not in the second half. But yeah, I don't know. People are so different from me, yeah, that I really don't have a good handle of what's a good. So I wouldn't be a good product manager, yeah, because I said, okay, well, everything in there, give options, yeah. But that's not the philosophy of WordPress. It's kind of decisions and not options. And I'm having a hard time thinking about decisions for millions and millions of people that are only millions and millions of people in other cultures. Yeah, so I'm really admire all the people who can make those decisions here. I'm
yeah.
digressing again. Sorry.
Okay. That happens. But
Yeah,
yeah,
so
I agree. I'd much rather be an engineer than a product manager because those folks have to deal with really tough decisions.
yeah. So the next thing is it's something for the for theme developers pretty much. It's the border radius presets for
Hmm.
the theme JSON file, which is pretty good. So you don't have users that have all kind of ideas how big the border radius has to be, and there's consistent either small or middle or large kind of border radius that you can give options to your users.
Yeah.
Justin Tadlock
Yeah.
actually wrote a piece already on the developer blog about that. So go and look for it. Of course, I also put it in the show notes.
Yeah, it's linked to from the test blog.
Hmm. that too. Yeah.
It's good. Justin's always on top of everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
as long as it's a theme related, gene station
Yeah,
related,
yeah,
design
theme
related. Yeah.
related stuff.
Yeah.
But this is, yeah, it makes perfect sense because you have font size presets, you have standard sizes, you have spacing presets, you have all sorts of things. So border radius is just one more of those.
Yeah. You could even have shadow presets. Yeah.
Hmm.
For the shadow setting, drop shadow setting. Yeah. Yeah, and the next one is this social links can now have custom icon, can not only the icon extensibility, but the whole custom variation extensibility, where you can create your own social icons with a plugin and have that display on your website. It's fairly easy once you get through the documentation and all that to actually create. So I needed it for my theme that I do for the Gutenberg Times. It's still in the works, but I talked about it earlier. I needed the social icons for the various podcast directories where Gutenberg Changelog is actually listed. And I only found two of them in the with core. One was the Spotify, and the other one was the RSS feed. Yeah, but there's also Pocket Cast, and there's the Pocket
Hmm.
Cast embed is in there, and maybe there's even yeah. So there's also a Podbean and these kind of things. So I had to create a plugin and just add them to it so I can put them in my template. So it's a fairly if I can do it, everybody can do it. Yeah, kind of thing.
Cool. Do you reckon we're going to start seeing plugins like for sort of really, really niche sort of, like social media platforms icon extension pack or podcast platforms icon plugin like for like specific things?
Yeah, I can see that too. Yeah, and or payment. Yeah, kind of for all the content creators. Yeah, you can see a link to Ko-fi and to buy me a
Well,
coffee or all this.
Patreon and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
or Patreon or PayPal. Yeah, for all those. Click here and donate something ways. Yeah, I can see that, and I don't think that. Yeah, as contributors, we don't have the bandwidth to kind of decide. Same thing, yeah, decide what's now should be in core and be maintained or not. Yeah, so have the extensibility in there is a really plus for the ecosystem. Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of the some of the features that I'm kind of thinking of right now. I'm still working on the source of truth with all the what I haven't seen neither in the release post nor in the call for testing is the list of all the improvements for the other blocks, for the old blocks. Yeah, only yeah, kind of what happened with the cover block or what happened with some of the comment blocks. Yeah, there are some additional features in there. We kind of wanted to remind everybody that there are 15 Gutenberg plugin releases in this next version. So
Yeah, and I mean, there'd be a huge amount of bug fixes, but unless there were a really scandalous bug that everyone was upset about, you wouldn't really announce it in your beta 1 release posts.
right, no, no, of course, yeah.
Releases are for features.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But there are updates also for developers. I think almost every API got some love in this release. So there is the data views and data forms. Yeah. The team has been working on almost all the 15 Gutenberg releases. There was something in there for the data views and data forms. Then the abilities API made it just
Yeah.
half an hour before the release into the beta. So
Y-
we will
That
see.
yeah, that one's also it's sort of a cool preview or pointer to what the future may hold in terms of AI integrations for WordPress. So it's a good one. I think it's good to have it out there, I guess, so that plugins can start because the idea is that plugins can register their abilities, the things that they can do, so an AI agent can go and pick up on those things and do tasks for the website owner. But of course, it's one of those things that it'll only work if there's adoption. So I guess it's good to get it out there early. So maybe plugins will start experimenting with that. And then once all the other parts, because then, there's a whole workaround building MCP adapter so that those abilities can be channeled through to AIs. So that's, it's all a big work in progress. It's pretty exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I feel that too. Yeah, but I think the MCP it's not yet ready yet. I think
No.
yeah, people have worked on it, but it wasn't near ready to be in core and be maintained for the future because it's the backwards compatibility promise that WordPress has might delay a few things to make sure that people are really sure that needs to be in core or that it doesn't change too much in the future. And with all the AI stuff, it's probably hard to predict how long it needs to wait or how this all comes together.
Yeah, it's interesting because the whole of sort of AI related development is going in this whole like move fast and break things mode, whereas WordPress is not about moving fast and breaking things. So yeah, no, the MCP, I mentioned it because this is something that the Abilities API will later be integrating with if all goes well.
Yeah, and there's
But
a
yeah.
plugin out there. So the AI team, core AI team, has four building blocks. One is the Abilities API, the other one is the MCP adapter, and then there is a PHP SDK, software development kit SDK.
Hmm.
The fourth one is the plugin that kind of pulls it all together and kind of shows what actually could be possible. So people who kind of, or developers who kind of want to get into that field can gradually skill up on the AI stuff. And I think it's really cool. And I know that Jonathan Bossinger, he has done a lot of live streams on all the AI features and has worked with the Abilities API, and he's preparing also for the developer blog an article to kind of do the introduction there and
Cool.
figure out a use case or a small plugin that kind of uses it. So yeah, pretty cool. Cool things
Yeah,
to come. Yeah, the interactivity API improvements are more about the router of that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I have to say I didn't really follow these very closely.
Yeah, me neither. It was
No,
always so
but
it sounded all like bug fixes, but I know there's something in there that people would like to use. I need to get smarter about that, but I haven't yet. And then the updates to the block bindings, where block bindings coming to other blocks or to custom blocks in one way or other, and then the updates on the HTML API, those are totally beyond me.
yeah, those are more internal things that
Yeah.
you wouldn't see any user-facing changes with HTML API updates. You might, I mean, potentially in some places it might make the code a bit more performant, it might make the code a bit more stable. It's generally it's a they're good code quality improvements,
Yeah.
but it's not something that you can actually point at on the front end of the website and go, "Hey, this is the thing."
This is the HTML API. Yeah. Yay,
Yeah,
celebrate it and put
you
him
don't see it in
yeah,
action like
yeah,
visually.
put fireworks on it. Yeah. I said, why? Yeah, that's kind of funny. Yeah. But what I learned is one of the good things about the HTML API is that you could actually parse HTML without using regex and get a better, I say, a more consistent outcome on things. If you want to add an attribute or a class or something like that to certain things, that's a good use case for HTML API. But it's also get a URL link content. Yeah, there are these new functions that if you had to write them yourself, kind of really complicated, but there's an underlying support layer with the HTML API that kind of saves you a lot of work on that.
Oh yeah. And things we do a lot very frequently throughout the code. And yeah, as you say, we were using regexes for things and like had custom solutions here and there to like add a class, remove a class, edit a class, do weird things with bits of markup.
Mhm.
And the tag processor has made a lot of code a lot more readable.
Yeah. So I think that's for now the WordPress 6.9 part of our changelog today. We need to get going here. So what's in 21.9 specifically? We talked about the allow blocks UI and support for more blocks. There's also what I like is actually the aspect ratio control for gallery blocks.
I was
Where,
going to mention that. I was just looking at it going, oh, that's a cool feature.
yeah,
Yeah.
It is.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
yeah.
but all of a sudden you have the pictures that are in your gallery are all the same size and all the
Mhm.
like, yeah, kind of really cool. And then there's in 21.9, there are also features in there that didn't make it in 6.9, like the breadcrumbs block for testing. It's still behind the experiments flag, but it will support the post with terms, has some other, it's actually added in 21.9 to the Gutenberg
Oh,
plugin.
oh,
Hmm.
there's a cool one here that I wanted to point out in relation to the data views package that is actually pretty visible in the front end. So it's shipping in 6.9, which is the persistence for your page settings. So
Mm.
when you're in the site editor, say you go into the pages view, and the default of that view is a list and the site preview. And you can change that. Say you can change it to display as a grid or a table. And previously, you'd change that, and then you'd navigate to another place, and then you'd get back, and it would be reset to the default view. Whereas
Mhm.
now it will save your settings, your view settings, when you navigate away and you navigate back. If you've reset the view, you still have the same view that you'd configured. So I think
That's wonderful.
it's just one of those little but really cool quality of life improvements
Hmm.
that is shipping in 6.9.
Yeah, it's kind of upsetting when it doesn't remember, yeah, because it's a bloody computer. It should remember.
Yeah, and no, I need this view because I really need to look at the featured images or whatever, and I need to see them in this size.
Yeah.
And then you navigate out, and oh no, it's all gone back again.
Yeah. All right. Is this stored in the user preferences, or is it more in the browser or also?
Ooh, yeah. So technically, I think a new package has been created to store these. There's like a
Mm,
new
okay.
views package, which is being used to store data views preferences. It is, I would say it's
In,
likely
in
to
user meta,
be
yeah.
stored in your browser settings,
Hmm.
like, local
Local
storage,
storage. Okay.
but I haven't actually
Yeah.
dived
It was
into the
just a detail.
implementation yet.
It's just a detail that I was kind of, yeah, if I
Yeah.
move away from my computer and go to a different computer, if it's stored in the browser, I don't have that feature
Mm.
persistent, yeah. But anyway, so yeah, we talked pretty much through things because the 21.9 is the last Gutenberg plugin release that has features for WordPress 6.9. After that, only bug fixes and quirkiness removal will make it into the release. So a lot of the things that we talked about actually came in just ahead of the 21.9 release candidate. So the notes are graduated from the experiments, yeah, so they can get into the release. The switch from block comments to notes in the term of description and how we talk about it to offset the confusion with the other comments that we have on WordPress, yeah, which is the user comments, the visitor comments. So that's also in this release. We talked about the accordion block. We talked about block visibility. There's a keyboard shortcut actually for the block visibility. So you can highlight click on a block and then do Control or Command Shift H, and then you hide it or H back again. It's a toggle switch, toggle keyboard. So that's pretty
Mhm.
cool. And there's some drag and drop by move in quality of life enhancements. When you
Mm.
move the block, it actually moves the block animation, so you kind of know, okay, I'm still moving this block. I'm not moving something else.
Yeah, the drag and drop, being able to drag and drop actual blocks is also a really great improvement. Like to actually grab the blocks and drag them somewhere else.
And
Also,
see it being dragged, yeah. Okay.
yeah, and yeah.
And then there is what is in 621.9 are actually experiments that I wanted to point out. I talked with Beth Soderberg about that because in the 20.8 there was a new block API for PHP only blocks. And it's definitely not a fully featured thing yet, but it now has auto register the block with the block API version 3, which is important for the iframe editor. And the other one is to make sure that the editor interactions and block supports are also working correctly with the PHP only blocks. So I think what was in block editor kind of dividing from the get-go is that some PHP developers hate JavaScript with a vengeance. They can now
I'm
kind
sorry to
of,
hear it.
yeah, I
I,
know.
I, I, I kind of understand.
Yeah, JavaScript, the good parts is a very small book.
Mm,
So there is the expectations that not all good things from the JavaScript block handling comes into PHP, but now it's much easier to create blocks with just PHP. But it's experimental. Is not yet in WordPress 6.9, and I don't know the timeline from that, but I just want to point it out that
mm,
some people can start testing things with
mm.
the Gutenberg release 21.9.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be great. That's a great thing for extenders to test and give feedback on, I think, especially while it's still experimental.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Especially agency developers and plugin developers who haven't made the switch to block things yet.
Oh,
And then, yeah,
um,
go
I
ahead.
I was just going to say, I was doing a bit of experimenting here, just to loop back on the data views preference persistence thing. It appears to be using preferences because it does maintain your preference across browsers.
Okay, cool. Thank you for filling that gap,
It's
knowledge gap. There's also an experiment that the navigation block toolbar gets a add navigation or edit navigation in the template part editor, which is definitely helpful because clicking on things it's sometimes hit or miss. But I think it's an experiment. I don't didn't see that made it into 6.9 because that came very late into 21.9.
there's
Yeah.
been a lot, there's been a lot of sort of ongoing work on the navigation block.
There
Maybe
is,
not
and
huge pieces, each one
mhm,
like just sort of small bits
yeah.
and pieces. There's a general improvement to how it works. Which one in particular are we looking at?
When you
Um,
go in the rundown further down to the experiments, there's one for the block API, and then for the block library, it has a navigation block toolbar. And when you click through the PR, that's 72008, you see it still has the experimental label there, and there's also no backport to 6.8. The 6.9, yeah,
oh, okay.
yeah. So you'd like that because you like having text in your toolbar, right?
Hmm. Oh yeah, no, I'm finding it very interesting that some of these new buttons for new functionality that pops up are actually text buttons. It's like, oh, we're giving up on icons.
We're giving up on icon.
Because
Well,
sometimes you
sometimes,
can't express things with icons as fully as you can with text. Like I've always struggled with icons, to be perfectly honest. One of the reasons I worked on the text labels
yeah,
setting was
yeah,
because I could not tell the icons apart from each other. Like, if I'm going to be working on this UI, there has to be a way of switching this off.
yeah.
So,
And a lot of
yeah,
people actually are grateful for that as well, with
I,
the same reason. Yeah, that
yeah,
icons don't do it for me. Yeah. To be sure that when I click on it, that I don't offset a nuclear bomb or something like that. Yeah, or
yeah.
my
Like, was
or
that the
the
one I wanted to click? No, it's the other one. They all look
yeah,
so
and,
similar.
what was it again that I really yeah to kind of remember those icons as well. And then for the block bindings, there is an experiment in 21.9 that has extends the UI to the external sources. That's something that I mentioned before, that it won't make by the block bindings, it won't make into 6.9, but it is kind of in the works for 7.0 and to extend the UI for the block bindings so plugins and other extenders can work with that and have their custom blocks and all that. And if you're interested in a PHP only blocks, there is some documentation in there now in the block editor, even if it's now still experiment, there is already some documentation under the getting started fundamentals registration of block. There is a PHP only block in auto registration chapter now. I think that was all I wanted to point out from the 21.9 release that is beyond the 6.9, yeah,
Hmm.
features and all that. We have also one thing that might be interested for the theme developers and also for plugin developers who want to tap into global styles. Global styles have been, the data logic has been moved into a dedicated package. So you don't have to have three or four packages to kind of deal with your global styles. It's just one that you have to include in your
Yeah,
plugin. So I think
this
that's very good development there.
this is still sort of far from its definitive shape yet. There was actually that even today there's sort of discussion on that PR as well. Like, should it be this package? Should we? I was arguing for some of these things to be in the style engine package, and Riyadh's sort of holding back, going, no, it might be too early. Let's try and figure out the APIs first. A very practical reason for this to appear is because there's a bunch of global styles logic that lives in edit site. And if we want to use it in the post editor, it's not really available. And so you know, global styles should be in a place where it's not bound to a specific editor and it can be used across the board. So this is sort of it's work that's going to be helpful for lots of internal purposes too. I think we're still not quite close to getting to the point where we start thinking about how useful this is going to be for
Mhm.
extenders. However, I have to say, if extenders are listening that may be interested in using any of these APIs, feedback is always very welcome. I mean, we can only know what needs to be public and what tools we should offer when people tell us, I need that. You know, this is a thing that would actually be very useful. So that any feedback on that count, I think, would be really good.
Yeah, there's still a few things that are still in private APIs, but I think that's the step to kind of move it into a public API as well. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thanks for diving in there. Yeah, it's a lot of commentary there and also with further PRs to fix some of that. But it is merged. It's however in the milestone for 22.0, and we'll see how far that goes when we talk about that in the plugin release of Gutenberg 20.0, which is actually the next one in 2 weeks. So, or yeah, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of activity going to be around 6.9 bug fixes and all that as well. So if people want to connect with you, where would they find you, Isabel? What is the best
Um,
way to connect with you?
I think I'm sort of not really on social media these days. So GitHub, I am Tell the Machines on GitHub. You can always come and, leave comments on my pull requests and the work that I'm doing if it's anything you're interested in. I am also in the core WordPress Slack. I think I'm also Tell the Machines in
Tell
core
the
WordPress
machines,
Slack.
yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
that's me.
That's a great handle coming out of the 90s.
Yeah, I was like, talk to computer thing.
Right, right, right. Yeah. Well, it's such a pleasure to talk with you through all geek out over the Gutenberg project and the releases. Thank you so much for being here. Dear listeners, go and help test WordPress 6.9. The instructions are incredible, detailed, and Krupa Nanda and Jonathan Bossingers, who are the test release leads, co-leads, have done a fantastic job to kind of put it all together. Of course, the links will be in the show notes. I will also link the PR. We talked about the global styles going into a dedicated package. I will link that as well in the show notes. And as always, the show notes will be published on gutenbergtimes.com/podcast. This is episode 123. I like it.
Ah,
That's my password.
1, 2, 3. I love it.
And if you have questions or suggestions and news you want us to include, send them to changelog@gutenbergtimes.com. That's an email address, and changelog@gutenbergtimes.com. So thank you all for listening, and thank you again, Isabel, for joining us. Bye bye.
Oh, thank you. Bye.